All right. Why don't you guide us, Matiz, and when to start, and we'll go on your mark.
All right. So we do faster speed, so the normal speed, but called faster, I guess. And so on 3, 2, 1, we all started. Okay. Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. Right. So at the beginning, mining drones, right? So there is not that much happening. So the idea is that so you build one drone, then you go to gas, and then you just build full, obviously. So the difference between normal 1312 and this build is the fact that 1312 is a full all-in, right? So if you have one spine or two spine, I mean the defender has it, then it's kind of hard to win, and people slowly adapted and they eventually learned how to do this, right? So here, instead of just going full all-in, you're just building 14 Zerglings and 3 Banelings, or even 16 Zerglings and then 3 Banelings. And then you just do pressure. You either try to kill his natural base and just pull back, or you go into his mineral line and you try to kill drones, and then you get a hatch behind this. So on one hand, this is extremely hard and very strong pressure. On the other side, it's just kind of a pressure build that you can fall back into macro after you deal initial damage. So that's pretty cool, right? Because how you achieve this? You achieve this by not pulling drones out of minerals, but pulling out of gas. So as you see, Impact right now, he's getting speed, and soon he's gonna build Bane Nest, but with the drone out. The entire story and the entire key to this build, right? Because you're gonna still mine minerals with 11 drones. You're gonna reduce your gas income by getting that drone out of gas, and then this happens. So then you're gonna have enough minerals to build the hatch, right? So you reduce your Bane count, you reduce your gas count, and you delay Queen, and this way you are able to afford the hatch, which completely changes the dynamic of this push because it's such a strong attack. Even Rogue, as you see, struggles here.
So this is an early aggressive build, a player whose style leans more to heavy, in your face, all over you. And you still have a chance to do into the hatchery as while you're pressuring. So that kind of makes up for it in a way.
Right. So mentioned that he prefers to be aggressive, so I'm trying to be adaptive coach, so I like to bring strategies that such mentee might prefer. So here, that's exactly what I'm doing. So as you see, as soon as Baneling Nest is finished, he morphs 3 Banelings, and now Spines of Rogue, it's Rogue, so he knows how to defend this, so he tried to defend with 2 Spine Crawlers, and that's pretty good. But he ate very powerful Baneling hit there. And
he's already in the main right now, killing drones.
And he's killing drones, right? So this is a pretty bad situation for Rogue. So in this case, Rogue had Spine Crawlers, so Impact knew that he cannot take down the hatch and just pull back, which is something I like to do. But in this case, since Rogue had those Spine Crawlers, then he ran into the main and he's killing a lot of drones. And Rogue is honestly in shambles right now, and Impact is doing really well, right? So behind this. So in my opinion, Impact actually went over aggressive here. I like to stop building links at 21 supply initially. So only 16 Zerglings in total minus 3 Banelings. So you have 13 Zerglings and 3 Banelings. Impact decided to build like even more links, which I'm not really, agreeing with, because right now if there are those spines, two spines there, he's not gonna do anything with them. So with those links. So those could have been easily drones. So I prefer to switch a bit sooner to droning. And he dealt a lot of damage, and right now the game is pretty much won, right? Like right now, whatever you do as a pressure guy, you are winning because you have 2 queens. Impact has 2 queens right now. He's going, he can deny the 3rd base of Rogue, he can go 2 base Muta, he can go 3 base Roach Baneling all in, or just play straight up macro or whatever.
And right now, Impact has almost 10 drones over Rogue.
Exactly. Rogue still doesn't have any queens because he's just barely redroning, right? And which obviously makes sense. But right now he's he didn't get speed because he wanted to have enough money to defend the attack. So obviously, I mean, this is possible to defend. If Rogue did everything perfect, then he would be able to. But that's the key of this build. It's relatively easy to execute this. And I mean, it's not that easy, but it's still relatively easy. While defending this is incredibly hard, right? So that's also a point in judging strategies and trying to pick ones. Sometimes the way whether the build is harder to execute or easier, or the defense is harder or easier, is actually a big factor, right? So for example, that's why people whined about carriers for so long, because it's easy to play carriers, but it's super hard to beat them. They're obviously beatable, but it requires a lot of skill. While playing carriers, you know, just kind of, you know, aim with carriers and throw storms, right? So obviously, I'm joking. Am I really? I mean, to some extent.
Are you really though? Are you really?
Yeah. So here it's exactly this process of thinking, right? Like you want to some extent, sometimes you want to have strategies that are easier to execute than to defend, because, well, you just have an advantage because of that.
With Rogue on this strategy here,
yeah,
what, like the two correct response?
Yeah, I would say so. But the problem was that he unburrowed one of the spines, and he wanted to get greedy and move it to the natural base, right? So then, and he also didn't split his links too well. So like one Bane link killed a lot of links, like 10 plus. So I've seen Cyril defend similar attack, and what he does is he has those tiny groups of Zerglings by 3 or 4 around the spine, and he has them hold position. So then if Banelings arrive, Banelings are gonna kill only 2 or 3 Zerglings, so they're not gonna be that valuable. But here Rogue grouped up his links and then 8 massive Baneling shot, and then you know, he couldn't defend those links running to his main base.
Then what is the response? Like if you are the person who did the strategy and it fails, what should you do?
Well, it depends how much you fail, right? Because, well, as any attack, if you are behind, if the attack doesn't work, then you're behind, and then you have to, you know, try some weird stuff, right? So so I mean, you try to do the thing that works for you to come back. So, for example, if you feel like your Link Bane micro is superior, then you try to pressure his third and maybe trade Link Bane well enough so that you maybe deny the third, and by having your third and deny his, maybe you go back. Or, you know, your opponent is greedy, so you try to go for Roach Pass like Impact is doing right now, for example. Or you do some crazy 2-base Muta if you know that your opponent is weak against Muta. Or you try some Link Run buys, you know, stuff like that. So there is no ultimate way of, you know, going back if you're behind, because, well, people otherwise would do it and they wouldn't be punished for being behind.
Okay, so Cyan, what are your thoughts on this particular build?
Yeah, so it kind of seems like Impact got really lucky with some link positioning early on. After the links showed up and he had just morphed his Banes, Rogue pulled his links down, and I think it was one of the moments when the spine was unburrowed, but Impact was able to slip his links up the ramp and block Rogue's own links from coming back up the ramp, and got a really juicy Banelink connection. I kind of wonder, like, if that hadn't happened, would this be a different game from that point on? Because it kind of seems like Rogue had like well enough to cope. If he had handled it maybe differently, or if that hadn't happened in particular.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so this build, as every aggressive build, is defendable, right? The thing is, it's very hard to defend, and not many people know how to do it, and not many people are able to execute this, right? So that's the thing. So people below Grandmaster, they struggle a lot against this build. Even in Grandmaster, I managed to, you know, take a lot of good wins, really, other advantages with it. So what I'm trying to say is, sure, I agree. Impact got lucky, Rogue messed up, right? But it's easy to mess up. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you play against, so even Rogue might mess up. So even if Rogue might mess up, then at our level, your level, my level, whatever, those mess ups will happen, and you're gonna get those juicy advantages through this push.
They might even mess up even more because you might be playing against like diamond players, platinum, you know,
Exactly.
and they're less likely to defend.
Yeah, many people skip spine. Many people don't know whether they should pull the drones or not.
So this could be like a good, like, quick level. Your way right through the.
I feel like I could probably be Masters if I just wanted to Ling Bane my way to it. People really just don't know how to deal with anything.
Well, no regrets.
Or even GSL, right?
Right? Yeah. GSL Dreams is just one in your way up.
I got another question for you.
Please ask more.
when Impact comes in with the links initially, he nibbles away on the hatchery there, the natural. And I actually always thought that was a really bad thing to do, that you didn't want to give your opponent. Like when I see that to me, I'm always like, oh, thank God he's not coming into the main, because that gives me more time to spawn Zerglings and make a queen or a spine or whatever. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so that's what you're saying is that if I run into the main base, if with good drone micro, with you know, stacking on the middle line and stuff, there is very hard. It's very. That's only 10 Zerglings that don't have speed yet, and maybe I'm gonna kill one drone or two if that's successful. But the problem is that, so then that's pretty much it, right? But here, when Impact did that with nibbling on the hatch, he had really an opening to kill it later, right? So, for example, if Rogue didn't have a spine or had it delayed or it was transferring or whatever, then so when I do this build, very often I manage to kill the hatch because I damage it to the half, and then I get my Banes, and then I try to finish off the hatch either with I try to take out his Zerglings, and then I take out the hatch, for example, which really often works. So I think that's a bit better because running into the main base, once those links are out, it's easy to take some unnecessary damage. You don't want to commit super hard because you have ability to morph banelings, and if you go into the main base, where are you gonna morph those banelings really? Since this is a transitional one, right? Like you don't want to kill your opponent right away, you want to just deal damage. So for example, if you kill his hatch while your own hatch is on the way, or it's even finished, like quite often I have a situation where I kill his hatch while my hatch is already done, which means I'm entire one hatch up for a very long time. So it's usually a huge economic advantage, right? So just going into the main feels a bit greedy. Yeah, you might deal some damage, but then you have no ability to just be content with the killing the hatch in the natural, for example.
Gotcha.
So you mentioned it earlier for how it's a lot simpler to execute and a lot harder to defend. What levels of players should use this or try this build, do you think?
So I gave this build someone from Platinum League, and he said that his ZvZ has improved significantly when it comes to results, at least thanks to this build, right? So I'm not sure what about lower leagues, but I guess if it worked in Platinum, then I guess I would say that's probably a good league to try it in. And also you have to remember that even if you execute it not as clearly, the defense will also be executed worse. So this means that pretty much everyone can try it, I guess.